7 years ago, I spent almost everything I had buying my very first rental property at the age of 24. 2 months ago, I sold it and made nearly $700,000 before taxes. And if you're thinking about buying a rental property, here's what I wish I knew before I bought mine. Back when I was 24, I was working a corporate job in finance in the Big Four accounting firm, and I knew very quickly that I did not want to do that forever. So I became obsessed with real estate and figured that was my way out of corporate America. I would listen to hundreds of hours of Bigger Pockets episodes. I would watch tons of YouTube videos, read every real estate book that I could, and eventually I became convinced that rental properties were going to be my way out of corporate America. The strategy I wanted to follow was called BRRRR, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So in 2019, I bought a 3-apartment building in Chicago for $438,000. And because it had a special loan program available at the time, I only had to put 5% down. And after closing, I still had roughly about $85,000 in my bank account for renovations. And at the time, I thought that was plenty. And it wasn't. The building I bought was over 120 years old and needed a ton of work. Most of it was cosmetic, luckily, but it wasn't just painting and flooring. I also was renovating apartments, replacing the HVAC systems, the water heaters, dealing with a lot of expensive things that could just come up with renovating an old building. So I watched my savings disappear. I went from $85,000 to $50,000 to $20,000, and then eventually I even got down to $2,500 in all my bank accounts. And that's probably the most financially stressed I've ever felt during the entire 7 years of owning the property and in my life. Because if something major broke at that point, I honestly don't know how I would end up paying for it, but eventually the renovations were finished. And I finally got to see whether betting almost everything I had on this building was eventually going to pay off. And financially, it did, just not exactly how I expected. The cash flow changed dramatically depending on the year. Some years weren't really that good. For example, in 2020, I actually lost $5,000. But by my final year of ownership, the property made over $38,000 in 1 year in just cash flow alone. And there's another financial benefit that doesn't really show up in these numbers. For most of the 7 years I owned the building, I actually lived there too, and I was house hacking. If I had rented somewhere else in Chicago, I estimated I probably would have spent around $2,500 a month. And I only rented somewhere else for about 1.5 years during my ownership. So roughly 5.5 years living in my own building saved me around $165,000 in rent that I otherwise would have just paid somewhere else. And that's why I still tell people that house hacking is one of the best financial decisions that I have ever made in my life. I was collecting rent, building equity, and reducing my own housing expense all at the same time. But eventually, I found another way to make even more money from the building. I converted the basement apartment into a short-term rental, and I was pretty skeptical at first, if I'm being honest about this. The building wasn't downtown Chicago and wasn't near any major tourist attraction, but the apartment ended up averaging around $5,000 a month in revenue, which is roughly about 2 to 2.5 times what I could have earned renting it with long-term tenants. And even during the slower seasons, it was still making enough money that the extra work was well worth it. And at this point, it probably sounds like the perfect rental property. It was cash flowing, the Airbnb was working, and I was saving money by just living there. And the building was also appreciating at the same time. So then why did I sell it? Because there's one cost that I never put into any of my spreadsheets: my time and my mental headspace. Here's what I didn't fully understand at 24. Being a landlord isn't difficult, and for the most part, it is pretty easy most of the days. You could go weeks or months where everything is completely fine and you're just coasting. But then, all of a sudden, your phone rings. For example, one winter, Chicago got extremely cold, being about -10 degrees, and a tenant texted me saying that their apartment furnace was broke. Obviously, I could not ignore that, so I had an HVAC technician go out there right away that night. He ended up calling me saying the furnace was working perfectly, so what's the problem? The tenant had actually left multiple windows open with their window AC units still installed from the summer, and the apartment was around 67 degrees instead of the 75 degrees that they normally kept it at. So basically, I paid the HVAC technician to go over there to close the windows. Then there was a time the Airbnb guest who texted me while I was at work said there was water coming down from their bathroom light fixture. Not exactly the text you want to get from someone staying in your property. After multiple plumbers going out to the property trying to figure out where the source of the water was coming from, they finally found a crack several floors up. Water was traveling all the way down to the basement from 4 floors, and the repair ended up costing me $5,100. And I also paid another $1,000 patching all the holes that the plumbers created in the wall. And then there was probably the craziest story of the entire 7 years. So back in 2020, one of my tenants frantically called me late at night, it was around midnight, saying that there was someone upstairs in their property. The police showed up, there was about 8 of them, and they ended up searching the building, and eventually they found the homeless man hiding in an upstairs closet. Apparently he had walked through an unlocked door, grabbed a beer, ate some cake, and made himself comfortable on the couch. I swear I cannot make this stuff up. And that's just some of the stories you get with being a landlord. Sometimes it's tiny problems, and sometimes it's a $5,000 problem. And apparently sometimes there's just a random guy eating cake in your apartment. But for most of my ownership, there was one thing that made all of this significantly easier. I lived there. When I lived in the building, managing it wasn't really that bad, if I'm being honest. If something broke, I could just walk downstairs. I knew my tenants personally, so I could just check on things myself. And when I hired someone, I could actually meet them at the property. Then when I moved out to Chicago to the suburbs, suddenly getting to the building took me around an hour and a half, and little problems tended to be a lot bigger annoyances. Here's a perfect example. I have around a 30 to 40 foot walkway in the back from the garage to the apartment. And once I lived there, it would only take me 5 minutes to shovel it in the winter. But once I moved away, I had people wanting around $100 plus to come out to shovel it. And that's just something I fully didn't appreciate until I moved. The exact same rental property could feel a completely different investment depending on where it is relative to your life. Even with a property manager, you don't completely eliminate the responsibilities. You're still getting to get calls when something breaks, you're still going to have to approve the repairs, and you're still ultimately responsible for the building. Small things seem to pop up every couple of months, and every 6 months to 12 months in my experience, it seemed like something major would happen. If this building required absolutely no work, I probably would have just kept it forever, if I'm being honest, because by the end, the financial numbers were actually incredible, which makes the fact that I sold it even harder to explain. By the end of my ownership, my mortgage, property taxes, and insurance were all around $3,000 a month. Meanwhile, between my long-term tenants and my short-term rentals, I was bringing in $10,000 a month in gross rent. So this wasn't a property I needed to get rid of, it was actually making quite a bit of money. And I always had assumed that I would just keep it forever, but eventually I stopped asking, how much money is this building making me? And started asking, is keeping this still the best use of my money and my time? Because by this point, I had hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity tied up in a 120-year-old building. I also had tenant risk, I had repair risk, and I also had the liability if someone got hurt on the property and sue me. And I had all the mental overhead that came with knowing that I could get a phone call or a text at almost any time about something going wrong. And my life has changed too, especially over the last couple of years. Last year I got married to my wife, and this year my wife and I are thinking about starting our own family. I also have other businesses that I want to focus on, and I started realizing that getting my time and mental headspace back had a lot of value to it. And then I ran the numbers, and that's what ultimately pushed me towards selling. If I could take more than $500,000 out of this building and invest in something like the S&P 500, an average long-term return could potentially generate more or similar to what the property might cash flow in a really good year. And when I say a good year, I mean everything has to go right. All 3 apartments have to stay occupied, there's no major repairs, no big unexpected expenses, no tenant issues or problems. Meanwhile, an index fund doesn't text me that the furnace isn't working. It also doesn't need a new roof, and nobody is going to leave the windows open in January. Nobody's also going to sue me because they slipped on the walkway. Obviously, stocks do have their own risk and returns aren't guaranteed, but once I compare the potential return with the amount of time, work, liability, mental energy the property required, selling it started making a lot more sense to me. The only question was, how much would I actually walk away with? Originally, I bought the building for $438,000. 7 years later, I ended up selling it for $1,050,000, and that shocked me. Going to last year, I thought the building might be worth around $850,000. Instead, it sold for more than $200,000 than what I expected. Part of that was because the neighborhood appreciated dramatically. It became one of the fastest appreciating areas in Chicago over the last 5 years, and the neighborhood was even ranked one of the coolest neighborhoods not only in the US, but in the world. After accounting for all the money I put into the property and selling costs, I made around $683,000 before taxes and depreciation and recapture. After taxes, I was left with $612,000. I also got my real estate license last year online through Calibri, and I'm super glad that I did. So I represented myself for selling the building, which saved me roughly over $30,000 in selling costs. And I have a whole separate video on that, so feel free to check it out. So in the end, yes, financially, this property changed my life. But I think there's a really important lesson here. Don't look at my result and assume that buying a rental property would have produced the same outcome for you. I ended up buying the right type of property in the right neighborhood in the right time. And if I'm being honest with myself, there was definitely some luck involved. If I would have bought in a different Chicago neighborhood, my appreciation could have been completely different. And if I would have bought, say, a single family house, the numbers could have been different as well. Or if I would have just bought a condo downtown, I could have potentially made significantly less money or even lost money. Real estate is extremely local. But I also don't agree when people say there simply is no money to be made in real estate these days. There's people making real estate on single family houses, multifamily buildings, condos, commercial properties, and they're doing it in cities all over the country. There are opportunities out there. The hard part is just finding them. So instead of asking, is real estate a good investment? I think the better question here are, where is the opportunity? How hard are you willing to look for it? And how much work are you willing to put in once you find it? Because appreciation ended up creating most of my wealth during this property, but appreciation is also the part I had the least control over. Knowing everything that I know now, there are definitely things that I would have done differently. First off, I would have moved faster with my first renovations back in 2019. One thing that I learned very quickly is timing. Depending on when your apartment is available in Chicago for rent, could dramatically impact how much you're able to get for rent. So if it's in the winter, you might get 20 to 25% less in rent income versus renting in the busy season in the summer. And if I bought another rental property today, I probably would look for something built around 1980 or newer. Owning a 120-year-old building taught me that even renovating it, almost everything you see, you still have 120-year-old problems hiding behind the walls. But the one thing that I would not change is buying a multifamily property and actually living in it. I still think rental properties can be an incredible investment, but I don't think they're for everyone, if I'm being honest. If the numbers work, the property cash flows, and it's somewhere you believe that has long-term demand, I would absolutely consider buying one today. You also don't need to be incredibly handy, and I definitely wasn't in the beginning, but you do need to be willing to learn how to solve problems. Because being a landlord is ultimately a people business. You're dealing with someone's home, and sometimes you're fixing a furnace, while other times you're dealing with the tenant's personal situation. And sometimes you almost feel like a therapist. But there are also people I think should seriously consider whether their time is better spent elsewhere. If you're a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, or someone that just makes a good amount of money per hour, your time could be more useful going back to your full-time job than it is buying an investment property. Yes, you can hire a property manager, but you can't outsource every decision. And that's the part I just underestimated. The true return on a rental property isn't just the money you make. It's the money it makes compared to the money, time, risk, and attention that you put into it. So if I could sit across from my 20-year-old self right now, before he signed those closing documents, I would tell him these three things. 1, things are going to go wrong. 2, some of them are going to cost a lot of money. And 3, some of them are even going to question whether you even bought the right place. But take it in stride. Keep learning and don't panic every time something breaks. Because all the research, the saving, the risk, and the hard work is eventually going to pay off in ways that you can't even imagine right now. I got a little goosebumps saying that. I went into this thinking that rental properties were going to be my escape from corporate America. And in a weird way, I was right. I just didn't need 10 of them in order to do it. I just needed one property. Now I have another financial decision to make. What do I do with more than $500,000 that I walked away with? Right now I'm considering a couple options, with one of them being taking a large portion of it and just putting it into the stock market. But I'm also considering completely something different, and that's buying a business. And if I do that, I'm planning to document the entire process here on this channel, including how I find the business, how I value it, and whether buying one actually produces a better return than owning real estate. So if you want to see a follow-up and exactly where the money goes, let me know in the comments and make sure to subscribe. If you're thinking about buying your very first rental property, hopefully this gives you a much better idea of what you're actually signing up for, and not just the rent checks and appreciation, the repairs, the risk, the work, and the opportunities. If you want to see how I got my real estate license and the best way that I found to pass the real estate exam, you can click on the video right here, or it's going to be linked down below. Also, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy watching this video even more so I'll see you guys over there next.